When I was 4 years old, I really wanted a pair of new, shiny pink shoes. I saw them sitting there, glistening back at me, the bulbs of the fluorescent lights bouncing off of them like pearls. And it was love at first sight. I had to have these pink shoes. I tugged at my mom's pant leg, desperately begging her to let me get them, and my mom enthusiastically agreed that if these were the shoes that I really wanted, she would happily get them for me. There were no ifs, ands, or buts about it, and I left the store that day proudly displaying my pair of pink, shiny new kicks. Everywhere I went, I asked people, "Do you like my new shoes?" And I'd proudly lift a foot up in the air to show them off. And for the most part, people reacted generously to my overly enthusiastic displays, and others not so much. Some would comment, "You know those are girls' shoes." Others would ask my mom if she was really going to let me out of the house wearing those. This was all the more palpable in the following week when I took my shiny new pink kicks out for their preschool debut. One of my younger friends came up to me and stopped for a moment and looked down at my feet and remarked, "Those shoes are pink. Those are for girls." And instinctually, I reacted by saying, "Nuh-uh, they're boys' shoes. They're my shoes." My mom tells me my friend simply shrugged, and after that, he joined me and some friends in a simple game of tag after. He didn't seem to think twice about it, and as far as he knew, I was right. There was nothing to support this arbitrary divide in clothes for separate genders. It was as simple as acknowledging it and moving on to play a game of tag after. Though I don't identify as transgender, growing up I encountered many assumptions and questions from others around my gender identity and expression. And looking back, it gives me a big point of gratitude that I had loving parents who let me wear whatever it was that I wanted, that I was allowed to be me, to wear what I was comfortable with, and to bring my fullest self anywhere I went, even a self that was maybe a bit too enthusiastic with those new shoes. This Sunday, as we're celebrating the kickoff to our annual budget drive, we are taking a deep and serious look at this year's theme of widening the circle, and how we might draw our circle wider still to those who have yet to find a home for their soul here. Now, don't worry, this won't be a 20-minute appeal for money or donations. In fact, I'm not sure I have much more to say on stewardship and the reasons to support and give to our UUCGT community beyond what the stewardship team, the Stew crew, has shared with you earlier this month. There are so many reasons for why we support this place and this importance of widening our circle. The deliberateness of love and intent in our relationships with one another, our staff, and our community. The ways that people show up and rise to the task when there is a need. Our presence in the community as a beacon for spiritual growth for all ages and a presence for justice. How being in community informs our journey alongside our fellow travelers and helps to shorten those long train cars of despair in these harder times. The many resources for families and the connections with a spiritual community that help us all to learn and grow together, as well as remind us that we are not in this life alone. And let's not forget the power of potlucks and multi-generational community, of the overwhelming love for the sanctuary and this special and sacred place in our lives, the gifts of communion and being together. This year, our theme of widening the circle is one that expresses a hope to widen our welcome and to consider how we might bring others in the community who can join us in this partnership and ministry. As UUCGT, we are proud to be a welcoming congregation with UUA, a designation that indicates our willingness to strive together for radical inclusion and to create spaces that honor every part of a person's identity, experience, and background. This is especially true of welcoming lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and intersex, and many more folks of other genders and sexual orientations in our midst. What we have here is truly a rare and special place. You've heard me say that before. Where else will you hear such wide words of welcome to open a service of a religious or spiritual community? With so many churches and groups out there that are less than welcoming, our presence as a community that is constantly striving to do and be better with welcoming others truly is inspiring and needed. In my work as a minister, I've heard people tell me about the power of hearing the minister say explicitly that you, yes, you, are welcome here just as you are in all that you are. How meaningful this is to hear if you've grown up in a church or tradition where you didn't know if your gender identity or sexual orientation was welcome. In fact, where it perhaps was not welcome. Where you perhaps thought that you might never find a religious community or spiritual home to call your own. I'm convinced that our work to widen our welcome will never be fully finished or complete. I am also convinced that out of any other group or tradition, we as Unitarian Universalists have a theology of welcome that runs deep in our bones and calls us to grow into our learning together and to be our better selves. I believe strongly that this vision of beloved community that we have together guides our hearts to reach beyond ourselves and our groups, to draw that circle yet wider still. Creating beloved community is an active and co-creative process. Just as in widening our welcome, it is work that will never fully be finished or realized. It is in a constant state of growth and transformation, of revelation and revolution. We as Unitarian Universalists heed this call of conscience to widen the circles of our hearts and to secure justice and compassion for all of our neighbors. And so all of this being said, UUCGT is undergoing the process of renewing its welcoming congregation status with the UUA. This is an exciting time where we are asked to delve deeper into welcome and to move into radical and transformational welcome. A place beyond just being friendly on a Sunday, a place that fully welcomes a person into the life and ministry of the entire and whole community. You might remember Zur Alex Capitan, a lay community minister and organizer who spoke here at UUCGT over the summer, whose sermon was all about transformational welcome. Alex spoke to the importance of stopping our assumptions and instead asking more questions, of creating a church beyond just the words, "You are welcome here," to instead reflect a sense that this place was built with you in mind. In Zur's words, if we are going to be more than people who are simply able to share space, if we are going to have a real relationship, I need you to respect my truths and my needs. If you can't do this, we can still talk and see each other. But we are going to be people who talk about the weather, not people who are in real relationship. Because we are so different, real relationship takes more than just being friendly with each other. It takes actively engaging with our differences from an open-hearted place and being willing to do the hard work of unpacking and unlearning our assumptions. Alex's words point to a fuller sense of beloved community beyond basic and empty words of welcome. Instead, Z calls us to be in true and real relationship, to be people who are beyond just talking about the weather, and instead who see and respect one another's truths. And as proud as we are to be welcoming congregations, we and our sibling UU congregations are struggling to widen the circle to transgender and non-binary people. A report released in 2018 by the Unitarian Universalist organization TRUST, which stands for Transgender Religious Professional UUs Together, the report found that 72% of trans UUs didn't feel their congregation fully included them in their identities. Only about 44% of trans UUs felt spiritually connected to and nourished by their congregation. And because of this marginalization of not feeling fully welcomed or included, some trans UUs have left our congregations and haven't been able to feel like they can come back. In other words, they haven't felt that radical sense of welcome that we hold and value so proudly as Unitarian Universalists. And as UUs, we affirm our first principle that all people, no matter who they are, have inherent worth and dignity. This isn't something that's a matter of debate for us. It's a statement of faith and conscience. We believe that each person's life matters, no matter if they are male or female, transgender or cisgender, genderqueer or non-binary. Even in the news today, we see how transgender lives and rights are under assault across this country, especially in Texas, where the Attorney General and Governor recently issued opinions likening gender-affirming surgeries, a procedure that gives transgender people a body that aligns with their gender identity. They likened it to abuse. We are in a world of harmful rhetoric that targets transgender and non-binary people in ways that leave lasting marks on their lives, and in some cases, threaten their lives. It is all the more important that we as a community can draw our circle wider to people of varying gender identities and expressions in a way that fully and radically welcomes them into the life of our community. In truth, approaching radical and transformational welcome starts first with ourselves. Our reading this morning that Amanda shared, a meditation by the Reverend Teresa Soto, a trans UU minister, speaks to how transformational welcome does start first with ourselves. As they write, the light must spill to shine. The thing that you must be is yourself, unadulterated, shedding the willingness to journey alone, as though you are made of something hard and unforgivable. You are human. You belong right here, right now. And together, we will chase away the sickness, the secrets, and leave only the possibility that the future is a space for growth. Reverend Soto elaborates on this in the new anthology released last year titled Beyond Welcome, Building Communities of Love, which I happen to have a copy of right here. They write, we are a faith and ethics movement that leads strongly with the idea that every person matters. When you think about the work you want to do to create welcome and build community, one of the important questions to ask yourself is, in what ways does my congregation assume that every person listening, participating, or leading is either a cisgender man or woman? That is, in what ways do we assume that not being transgender, identifying as the gender that we were assigned with at birth, is the experience for many or for all of us? Whether individual or collective, these assumptions create an experience of erasure. That experience of erasure, of being rendered invisible, makes people weary of trying to be seen. Weary especially of asking for care and inclusion that already is freely available to others. If I think back to my own experience in that shoe store of my 4-year-old self proudly displaying those new shiny pink shoes, I'm grateful for the many ways that I didn't experience erasure for who I was. I'm grateful for how I was welcome to be my full self in a family that saw me for who I was. And as a congregation, we too are also a family. And we must strive to give the care and inclusion that is so freely given to others, to those who so desperately need to receive it, those who often have to ask to feel seen and heard. Our Time for All Ages story this morning that Betsy shared provides a beautiful example of radical and transformational welcome. Bronterina experiences the pain of erasure with the studio, how she so desperately wants to dance but is told that she can't be because she's a dinosaur, how she's too big and just doesn't have the right shoes. In the end, Madame Lucille's Dance Academy realizes that the issue really isn't with Bronterina. It's that their studio is too small to welcome her fully into the community of dancers. So quite physically, they widen their circle by finding an outdoor studio that fits everyone in their community, cows included, and Bronterina is able to be the dancer that she dreamed that she could become. So yes, there is much work to be done to draw our circle wider, but even so, this task is not impossible. It starts first with ourselves, with being our full, real, authentic selves and allowing our lights to spill out and shine to one another. And it also requires that we notice the ways that others might not yet be able to be their real and full selves, the ways that our space is too small to hold the great expansiveness of those who have yet to find a home here with us. In widening our welcome, we need to see how the stewardship of this community itself is related to this task, how each one of us is invested in this community and future of this congregation, how ours is a shared ministry that asks us how we will use our gifts to bless the world. As I mentioned earlier, UUCGT is renewing its status as a welcoming congregation. And on Sunday, March 13th, after the service, which is in a couple weeks, we will be hosting the Transforming Hearts Seminar, which is co-founded by Zur Alex Capitan and the Reverend Michael Slack. If you're interested in this idea of transformative, radical welcome, we strongly encourage you to participate in this seminar, which will delve into the ways that we can be more inclusive of trans people in our community. We do need a percentage of our congregation to participate in the seminar in order for us to qualify with UUA for our renewal. But aside from this just being checking a box, this is also a real opportunity for all of us to learn and to grow, to explore new terms like trans, queer, cisgender, gender identity, and many other terms that might still be a bit unfamiliar to us. So to close, may we endeavor to be such a community in which all may find a place here for their spirit. May we go beyond our words of welcome into genuine practices of welcome that say to someone, not just you are welcome here, but this place was built with you in mind. May we steward this community in such a way that bids us to draw our circles wider still, to widen the circle to our wider region. And above all, may we remember the blessing and power in being loved and included just as we are, in the fullness of all that we are and all that we will become. May it be so, and amen.